25% of the audience is gone. That's the latest polling result we have out of Rasmussen. They say that despite the highs and lows of 2024, their poll shows Disney is struggling more than ever before. We'll give you the latest, break it down, and tell you how much money Disney is leaving on the floor. Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we, as ever, endeavor to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve. We are thrilled to have Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen Reports joining us today. Mark, how are you?
Doing well. I got over an illness. It sounds like you might be getting it, but
I'm a little froggy, a little groggy, Mark. But we're doing better than Disney, it appears, and that is what you have uncovered. Folks, I want to show this to you as we get ready to dive in. Consider clicking the like button, and here we go. Take a look at Breitbart. It has exclusive. Trump has higher favorable rating than Disney. Now, Mark, this is based, I believe, on your polling out of Rasmussen Reports, but we're going to approach this in a slightly different way. So we're not going to be aiming our video today necessarily on the Trump aspect, but rather on how much money Disney has lost by playing in politics. Here's the article. It says, President-elect Donald Trump's current favorability rating is higher than the Walt Disney Company. An exclusive Rasmussen Reports poll for Breitbart News shows that the Disney favorable rating is only 49%, with 43% who view the company unfavorably. Those are astonishing numbers. It goes on to break this down, how Trump is ahead. But Mark, in your polling, one of the things that you've discovered is that apparently about a quarter of the audience has decided they no longer want to support Disney and they're not going to go see their movies. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a major story that I think we're only really seeing the leading edge of, and that is the absolute complete abandonment of the profit motive within companies. Woke has destroyed these companies. I don't think they're going to be able to recover. And the reason we're talking about Disney is because they're really the most salient ones. I mean, I think they were begging for a lot of this. But this question here, have you chosen not to watch a Disney movie this year because of politics? 23% of Americans say yes. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but this is magical Disney. In the 80s, every single person I knew went to Disney World. They wanted to go to Disney World multiple times. They all went to all the movies that came out. And now it's gotten so bad, their foray into politics, that they are literally turning off people. They're changing their media consumption behaviors. A quarter of Americans say, no, I did not watch a movie this year. So we can actually see there is a very real financial impact. Hard to quantify, but a very real financial impact into getting political.
Absolutely. And Mark, I don't know if you want to show your screen and show some of that polling. I would hesitate to do it myself because you would be bouncing around faster than I might be able to find things, and we would be clumsy. But Mark, as you're getting ready to show what you have, and we'll be careful not to show things that you don't want out in the public sphere necessarily, I want to show everybody this out of the Walt Disney Company. This is a press release they sent out about 8 days ago. It says the Walt Disney Studios tops 2024 global box office. We'll skip down to the second paragraph where it says, on Thursday, the studios announced that it was the #1 studio globally, bringing in $5.46 billion around the world. That includes $2.23 billion domestically. And stop, we don't need the rest of it. Now, you've been polling domestically, so we're taking a look at how Americans feel about the Walt Disney Company. Now, at $2.23 billion, if we just say, okay, what is a quarter of that? Like if we were to add a quarter of that amount on top, what's the amount they're losing by having a quarter of the audience not tune into Disney movies? Well, folks, they're getting real close to half $1 billion or more. Is that your finding, Mark?
Yeah, I came at it from a bottom-up approach, but yeah, you can almost tie it to the exact movies that people didn't go and see. You probably know those better than me, but what I said is let's take these people at face value. 23% of them, let's just call it a quarter, said they did not go see one movie. So let's say they didn't bring anybody. Let's say they're going by themselves. I mean, what is a quarter of what's 23% of 260 million adults? We're talking 60 million people. Okay, what's the ticket price and what's the take? Call it $10. Disney takes what, 5 of that? So we're at 300 million bare minimum.
Well, the other thing is those men and women typically going to see these Disney movies because they associate Disney with family. They're making the decision for the household probably. So
100%.
there's, 2 or 3 or 4 kids, maybe a grandparent included in this. I also, Mark, as I'm looking at this, and I'm just noticing that there is, as we see in politics, a gender divide here. Do you want to speak to the fact that men seem to be more in tune with what they have in terms of disagreements with Disney?
Oh, well, I guess, Jordan Peterson will say that men are traditionally more disagreeable than women. And here we kind of see that 28% of men said they're not going to see a movie because of that. 19% of women, at some point, we're not going to be able to attribute this to what's really going on because maybe, the men actually weren't going to go see the same amount of movies as women. The fact remains here, it's unavoidable. Hundreds of millions of dollars of potential lost revenue just from this year alone. And I think that's kind of like a floor. And there's also, as we can all imagine, a very political aspect of this. This is what happens when the entire establishment is built around basically the Democrat Party fundamentals in DC, and companies get cozy with them, and it becomes a shared dogma. Only 10% of Democrats said yes, 77% said no, but half the country, right, voted for Trump. 44% of Republicans said yes. 44%,
and that's easily how you get to that quarter mark is half the country conservative or moderate, and you've got 44% of those say, no, I'm out. And that, by the way, Mark, that doesn't mean that they just hesitate to go to a Disney movie. It means they're gone. They're off the books. They're done with Disney. And until Disney does something to repair this, there's no going back. So
they're not going to the parks. They're not buying Star Wars toys. They're not, bringing home stuffed Mickeys to give to their kids. It is brand suicide that Disney embarked on. And I don't know if you want to get into it, but I do think there is a little bit of proof here that if you back off of the insanity, that you can improve your brand again. So we started.
Walk us through that, Mark.
Yeah, we started polling about Disney in 2022 because of the stuff with Ron DeSantis. We don't have to get into it. And what we found was absolutely stunning. We found that their approval rating was at 44%. That's right now 49%. That's still really bad. Trump's at, probably in our numbers, Trump would be at 53% today.
And so Trump is, Mark, you found that earlier. Axios Harris also was in that same vein, and that made it very difficult for Disney to escape the narrative. They would have loved to have said, oh, it's just Rasmussen. They're just crazy. They don't know what they're talking about. Conservative, group. But then Axios Harris dropped the bomb on them too. So I think you're right in line with reality. Continue on, please.
Yeah, and it's getting a lot harder for them to ignore Rasmussen after this most recent election cycle too.
You guys killed it. I mean, just fantastic.
The Twitter context helps a lot too. The fact that what happens in the mainstream media sphere is no longer public perception.
Well, Mark, I've stopped calling them the mainstream media. They're the dinosaur legacy going extinct media now, because you are the media, and the folks out there listening, you're the media. I agree with Elon Musk, and I am welcoming in this new era for reasons that are not at all selfish.
Yeah, it's changed in a way that I don't think the world has coped with yet. I think America changed on November 5th, not because of Trump's election, but because Twitter was where everybody was, and the media. Just a month before that, it was absolutely wild. Everybody was going through hoax after hoax and psyop. The media threw everything they could to try and get Kamala Harris to win. You were talking about Puerto Rican jokes. We were talking about Trump being wanting to line up Liz Cheney and shooting her.
Well, don't forget, Mark. I mean, we've got one more left to go today. I don't want to get too political, but later today we've got the sentencing of the felon. Which will happen today, and I don't think that's going to play out the way they want either. It would be interesting one day to see some polling on that to see if we hope the final event of lawfare does good for them, or actually just shoots them in the foot once more. But
we'll put a pin in it. But Donald Trump won the primary when he was indicted. That's what won him the primary. So I mean, it hasn't had the intended effect for a very long time. But the point is that the people realized it on November 5th because nobody cared at all what Bret Baier was calling states. They were all having parties on live streams on Twitter. But for Disney, 2022 was really bad. 44% approval rating, that puts them below like many major Republican politicians. Like when your company is supposed to be servicing everybody in America and you're polling like Mitch McConnell, that's really bad for your brand. And it was all about the we asked this question too. This is kind of ugly. Sorry for the formatting. Well, we'll go here. 71% want Disney to return to family-friendly entertainment. And that's that's a pretty ringing endorsement of backing off of the insanity that they were doing. And then this question here, Disney General Entertainment recently said that they have many, many, many LGBTQIA characters in our stories. Do you support or oppose? Only 23% of America strongly supported that. That's like America was not on board with the agenda that became the core component of what Disney Creative was doing in all of their media. Just absolutely insane. But here we are. I mean, I think some people would say, based on some of the recent movies, they've backed off, and the favorability is back up to 49%. That's still horrible. It should be like if you were running Disney, what would you want your favorability to be?
Mark, what's the gain there? What was the percentage gain? Give the folks what they were at and what they are now in I guess 2 years essentially.
Yeah, let's try and compare. It was what do we have here? This is 42%. I'm sorry. It's up from 42% to 49%, 7-point gain. Only a 3-point gain in very favorable. Is that what we're looking at? No. I mean even less. So they only gained a few points in very favorable. Only 18% of Americans have a very favorable impression of the Walt Disney Company.
Now, Mark, the interesting thing, though, is they've only begun to moderate since about June. You could argue May in terms of what the public can see, but they are seeing some incremental gains. So one of the things we've been paying close attention to with movies like Inside Out 2, movies like Moana 2, there was the curiosity of, would families ever trust Disney again? Now, clearly, there are enough families that will immediately just right back to trusting. And I'm curious, do you have any thoughts on how long it might take Disney to restore themselves, or is that too forward? Would that be too much of projection for you to estimate a guess?
Well, I'm fascinated in all of these things because we're talking about entertainment here, but this is a very close proxy for any major political discussion that we have in this country. We talk about the Overton window, and it's all about trying to predict where that is, what Americans think. Like, that's my job. And sometimes it changes drastically fast, and other times it doesn't. I will say it tends to go negative faster than it goes positive. More silver lining to the cloud for Disney is that they're very unfavorable, went down from 27 points to 19 points. So that's a really good pickup. But, most Americans just say somewhat. It's 55% of Americans say they have a somewhat favorable or unfavorable impression of Disney. So the problem for them is they might try and repair trust, but they're kind of in the friend zone now. They're in America's friend zone, right? They're not getting this goodwill that they built up anymore, where people will just drop their kids in front of a Disney movie and implicitly trust everything they're going to be seeing. So I don't know how you ever rebuild that. It's funny, they've thrown everything at Donald Trump and he's still there, and so people are resilient when they're believers, when it's earned. Donald Trump earned his supporters. Disney has earned their detractors. I don't think there's a lot that they can do to really change this. And again, it is political. It is only 15% of Republicans have a very favorable impression. Only 19% of Democrats. Those numbers are low. But look, like here's the other thing. Look at this. You'd say, well, with how political they are, Democrats would be fawning over Disney.
Right.
19% very favorable.
Well, they're probably getting a backlash now to the backlash, right? Because Disney's tried to moderate. So now they've made everybody angry. Now, I want to show this to you real quick. So, Mark, if you take a look here, Disney is bragging heavily about this $5.46 billion around the world in 2024. But I want to remind people out there, Disney made more than $11 billion at the box office in 2019. And I don't know if anybody's heard of the word inflation before. If you haven't, go check it out. I think it's been happening in some places around the world. And so to go from 11 billion 5 years ago to 5.46 billion now, that is a monumental collapse. People out there will say, well, Disney's number one. And it's like, yes, over a shrinking kingdom. Take a look at this. Let's figure out the dollars that may have been lost on this. We're going to stick with just a few movies to get an idea of it. Mark, we've got a domestic total for Inside Out 2 of $653 million. One would surmise that if a quarter of the people decided they're not going to go see it, that's about $150 million left on the table that otherwise Disney would have picked up if the polling is accurate and if people said, no, I'm not going to go. If 25% of Americans out there just saying, I'm out, then that's about $150 million that Disney could not grab up. If we go down to Deadpool and Wolverine, we're going to get a very similar number, $636 million domestic. You add that up, you're getting close to $300 million on the table. And then we're going to scroll down. We've got the top box offices. We're only going to do 3 Disney movies here, but there's plenty we could go through. Moana 2, domestic total as of the publication of this article, $404 million. So that's an easy number. That's another $100 million. And we're right at $400 million just in domestic box office totals that if the polling is accurate, we believe based on your track record, especially as of late with the election, oh my gosh, how accurate it was. Well, Disney, they need to get on the ball because their investors are going to fall out of their chairs once they realize that this political game has damaged them gravely in the financials. Mark, your thoughts.
Again, I think that this is going to play out over the next 10 years. And what fascinates me is how much Disney puts into the media, the press, like moving that stock, like putting out a good number, regardless of what the actual implications for the company are. The fact is, based on the polling, they have turned off a massive portion of America. They're probably not going to get them back. It's probably going to take a lot of work, a lot of trust building. And this isn't just movies. Like the movies are the easiest, most obvious ones to quantify, but people are not going to go to the parks. There's better options. People don't have the money. Their business looks like it's slowly dying. And I put a tweet about this out. Just, I was thinking about it before I came on the show. Number one reason for woke companies, it's not China, fund managers, your BlackRocks. It's not the schools, academia, the critical race stuff, the media, none of that. It's because it's boring and hard to stay committed to making profits. And that, I think, is fair to say, not what Disney has been doing. It has not been committed to making profits because what do? You treat every customer as precious. And they haven't. And it's a lapse of their fiduciary duty to their shareholders. And that's the problem with companies today. I had my MBA back in 2008, and everybody was infatuated with stakeholder capital. But here they are. It works until it doesn't. And imagine that when the economy's horrible, when there's a populist uprising because politicians sold Americans down the river and the companies were complicit, people are going to get upset and no longer purchase your products.
I can't tell if you're describing woke companies or if you're describing the governments in California and Los Angeles. Which one are you describing right now, Mark? I can't keep up anymore.
Every institution in America.
Do you think, Mark, that the wildfires and the response to those in California, that this might actually hasten the number of people who are ready to say enough of DEI? Because there's plenty of criticism that DEI may have played a part in California being ill-prepared and then not efficient in protecting their citizenry. And so whether that's true or not, we'll leave that on the table. But the perception is there. And so I just wonder if we might be getting ready to see a backlash where people who were previously more sympathetic, empathetic to the woke cause might say, nope, not when it's my house. Not when it burns down my house. I'm done with it now.
I think Trump is a harbinger of the backlash. I think the reason Trump is a thing is because that he is the most plausible person that to voters had a solution to our failure of institutions. Because people can say that this was about Harris being a bad candidate. People could say, like the Republican policies. This was a referendum on government because only 30% of voters trust the federal government. Actually, more people trust Harris than the federal government, right? And so now that's a proxy for your local police, your fire, the people that make your airplanes and Boeing. People are not happy with the direction of the country. Only 29% of voters say that the country is on the right track. And so the problem is that some people are thicker than others, and some people enjoy the status quo. Some people have blinders on. Some people have been convinced for ideological reasons not to, objectively look at their situation. I think a lot of people in California would wake up. I think Adam Carolla had a really good take on the situation. It's like when these people go for permitting, that's when the rock's going to meet the hard place. I don't know, but it has to change because, and it's not right just calling it DEI. That's the problem too. I saw a woman there's a clip going around on Twitter of a woman who works for or is in charge of the LA, whatever this organization is that pumps all of the water. And people looked at her and are responding and saying, well, this is a DEI situation. That particular person didn't do a good job because the fire main headers went dry or whatever. I think that's kind of dangerous because, listen, she didn't design and build the fire main headers 80 years ago in LA, right? She could be doing a good job and the best she could have. But also we can acknowledge the fact that for decades, Gavin Newsom, the Democrats in charge of LA, the people who haven't been doing their foresting effort, Atlas shrugged. Atlas has shrugged. And it's happening in everything, in absolutely every academia, government, companies. People are not doing their jobs. And there are massive ramifications that we're only just starting to figure out. And that's why I think the next couple of years under Trump are so fascinating, because we're going to see if it's fixable or not.
There's been a huge push for anti-meritocracy, and that's a terrifying thing because nobody with any sanity would ever hire, a roofer to go up and put shingles on your house unless they had the merit and the ability to do so. You would never go to a doctor unless they could help heal you. It's insanity to say, well, anybody can be my doctor and anybody can be my plumber. That's crazy. And yet that's been the stance that we've taken as a society when it comes to our government. And folks, unless you think we're getting too political on an entertainment channel, just remember that it was Bob Iger calling Gavin Newsom back in the pandemic era to suggest, hey, we really should shut down California. We're going to shut down Disneyland. Let's go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and make that statement. These people are incestuous. They're all together. And that's why when we're talking about what the reaction might be in Los Angeles, we're really talking about the neighbors and the cohorts who not only drive the California government and a lot of the DNC, but we're also talking about Disney and the media at large. We'll see what the response is. Have they had enough? Well, we'll find out. But Mark, we could never have enough of having you and Rasmussen doing such a phenomenal job. Thank you, sir. And tell the folks out there where they can find more of this fantastic content, which is honestly like a tsunami of truth online.
Well, thanks so much. But I think you guys shouldn't ignore your own role in this, because politics is downstream from culture. And the political status quo didn't change, in my opinion, until the entertainment status quo changed. And that very much did happen. There was a culture war being fought in 21, 22, and 23 on Twitter, YouTube. You were a part of it. Many of the people that you collaborate with were as well. And we're here for it because the entertainment, political opinion are inextricably linked. RasmussenReports.com, Rasmussen_poll on Twitter. And we also have a YouTube channel. We've been putting out 10-minute videos, but we're actually probably going to start a live show soon, perhaps next week. So hopefully everybody can come check it out. We'll be on Rumble and Twitter as well.
Fantastic stuff. Folks, make sure you go over and subscribe to everywhere you can find Mark and Rasmussen. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time now for you to go from being passive to active. Click that like button, share, subscribe, click it and stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts and weigh in on whether or not this is the end of whatever we've been watching, this deconstructionism and destructionism of our society and entertainment. Tell us what you think down in the comments. Folks, until the next time, we have the honor of spending time with you. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Wilton, what are you doing? Well, word on the street is the culture war has officially made it to the doorstep of that park place. And I realize Jonas has no one there who loves him. So I thought I should go and protect them.
Yeah, okay. That's not, how you do this, right?
Do what? Fight? Don't worry, Floral. I will not be intimidated by a criminal threat.
Threat? Well, don't be ridiculous.
What does it matter to me? I have only one life to lose.
I mean, I totally expected you to die walking into traffic, but,
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Okay, just stop. This is just nonsense. You already have one of the easiest and most effective tools and weapons at your fingertips.
My axe?
No. The truth. Stay smart and ready to tell and share the truth by keeping up to date with WDW Pro, that park place, as well as Valiant Renegade.
And Jonas? I mean, he does things with Vash, and that's not very reassuring. That's like putting two helpless chipmunks into a piranha pond.
That's neither true nor accurate. Unlike the team from that park place.
Sue me.
Ugh.